Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. This is a compilation video of some of my greatest hits. Hope y'all enjoy them.
Alien humans. I know that sounds crazy. It does. I'm the first to admit it. But I want to discuss this with you a bit because there's some things we don't understand and there's some things that don't make sense. There's a man named Dr. Ellis Silver. He wrote a book titled Humans Are Not From Earth, a scientific evaluation of the evidence. Okay. He lists and discusses 17 reasons why humans are not suited for living on this planet. For example, large doses of sunlight hurt us. We get sunburn, okay? And that shouldn't happen. If we're naturally evolved on this planet, we should be used to it, right? A large percentage of the population have chronic backaches, meaning we're used to a lower gravity. Higher gravity pushes us down. Okay. We are better programmed to exist with a 25-hour day instead of a 24-hour day. Astronauts in orbit, their circadian rhythms change from a 24-hour day to a 25-hour day, which consequently is the same day length rather as Mars, as I understand it. So that's something to consider. Here's another thing we need to understand. Why did humans in colder climates lose their body fur when we tend to freeze to death? Because humans evolved in Africa, and we understand that. But there's furry animals in Africa. Why did humans lose their body fur? I mean, I've got a beard, and we have hair on our head, and blah, 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 blah. And we have body hair, but it's not, it's definitely not protective, Although I got some relatives that might actually apply to. But my point is, we are not suited for the atmosphere on this planet. Why did we lose our natural claws before we gained technology? Think about it. Lloyd Pye also does a number of things on this. Human beings crawled out of the trees and the savannas and stood upright, and what's roaming the savannas? Big cats, lions, jaguars, tigers. We're walking meat bags. We don't have any claws. Before we had tools, we had no weapons. We can't outrun anything. We breed a lot, but we don't breed that much. How did humans survive? It raises questions. Dr. Silver posits the theory that for whatever reason, humans were brought to or moved to this planet from their origin world, which would explain these anomalies. And people go, well, what about all the UFOs in the sky and all that? I don't know. I don't know. Our government, the Pentagon, and last year the Navy both announced that UFOs are real. So if they're not from here, they've got to be aliens, right? Or some other dimension or whatever. But what if we're the aliens? Somebody put us here, or our ancestors came here. But if you think about it like this, I do a lot of videos on ancient technology that we can't explain. For example, Michael Cremo and his forbidden archaeology. What if our ancestors came here and we lost all that knowledge somehow from that other civilization, and we had to start over from scratch? It raises questions. I'm not saying that's what happened, because I don't know. Nobody does. Excuse me, but my point is, everybody's finding stuff from our past that we can't explain. Dr. Silver here has found things about us that we can't explain. Where did we come from? If we don't know where we came from, who are we? It raises questions, that's all I'm saying. There's things about ourselves we don't know. And when we don't know something, we should probably try to find it out.
This is a story about the Green Children. The story of this is an old story from England, apparently during the 12th century, the reign of King Stephen. in Woolpit in Suffolk, England. The two children, a brother and a sister, with green skin, just came out of the woods. They appeared. They just showed up one day. And they looked absolutely normal, except for their unusual skin color. They spoke in an unknown language and would only eat raw broad beans. I have no idea what a broad bean is. But there you go. Eventually, they did learn to eat other food, and they lost their green pallor. So their skin turned from green to more of us. You know, what we look like. More normal, I should say. The boy was kind of sickly, and he died soon after the children were baptized. The girl, according to reports, was rather loose and wanton. So apparently she got around. After she learned to speak English, she explained that they had come from a subterranean world inhabited by green people called St. Martin's Land. This is the story. She married a local man and bore children. So her children are still in England. They're still, you can trace the lineage back. This is not a fairy tale, and the lineage can be traced from present day all the way back. So this was a real person. This wasn't somebody made up and, oh, look at some green kids and they went away. No, the girl was still there. She married. She had kids. There's descendants that are still alive today in the world. So it's not a fairy tale. It is an actual event. It did in fact happen. The kids are there. You can trace them down. As I recall, they reported on this in Ancient Aliens, as I recall. But it's not, it wasn't anything, what's the word I'm looking for? They couldn't really say that they were aliens per se from the show Ancient Aliens, except for the fact that they apparently had a different skin color than humans. But once they started eating the different food, their skin color changed, so maybe they're just a different kind of human. I don't know. Apparently what you can eat can change your skin color. So, at any rate, there you go. The Green Children of England, of Woolpit. 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 It's in Suffolk in England. And if you're curious, check it out. Do some research and put some comments down on the bottom. I'd like to read these, because this is a real event. It did in fact happen. It's part of the public record, and the descendants can be traced to modern day. So
we'll start with Bigfoot. Bigfoot was a term coined in I want to say in the 60s, and there was a logging camp. They had a bunch of heavy equipment there, and a lot of their stuff kept getting destroyed, and they kept finding these big tracks everywhere. Huge humanoid tracks, but they're huge, 12, 15 feet long or whatever. And we don't know if it was a hoax. We don't know what. I'm not saying it's real in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but I did a current events thing the other day where they had discovered a new species of whale off the coast of Japan. And in Vietnam, I touched on this. They found a new species of antelope that hides in the water and breathes through the top of its head. And this thing, they found it in Vietnam in the 70s, where we had just fought a war. You think somebody would have saw it, but no, they didn't. Go back a little further. I want to say it was in the 70s, early 70s. They caught a picture of a fish that somebody had caught off the coast of Africa somewhere, and it was what's called a coelacanth. And this fish was the ugliest fish, I swear. But anyway, the locals have been catching them for years. Mainstream botanists, biologists, whatever, the mainstream science had thought that this fish was extinct for 60, 65 million years, something like that. But there it is. It's right there on camera. Somebody caught one. So when people say, well, there's no such thing as Bigfoot, well, it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's real. I don't know. But discounting things is the first step in ignorance, in my opinion. When right now in mainstream archaeology, they keep finding stuff that completely shatters what they thought they knew. They've been teaching it in school for decades. And then they find something like Göbekli Tepe, which is a site, a religious site. The thing is massive, it's huge. And it pushes back the dawn of current mankind something like 5,000 years. It puts man on this earth in its current form 5,000 years earlier. Okay? There's a lot of this stuff that we don't understand. And mainstream science seems to ignore what they can't explain. They're doing it. Okay? Now again, you know, there are some things in science that are absolute. The laws of physics are absolute. But there's a lot that people think they know that they don't really know. You know? So when you hear a scientist say, there's no way Bigfoot could exist, remember Göbekli Tepe. It boggles the mind how scientists, and they did this other thing. Here a while back, they found soft tissue inside fossils of mammoths. They had found some mammoth fossils, and inside there was some soft tissue. They were able to get DNA samples from that. Okay? That shouldn't exist. There's no way it should exist. Right? Because woolly mammoths have been extinct for how long? You know, it shouldn't exist. But then you go back, and I was reading this years ago, and I thought it was kind of funny at the time. I'm a huge Louis L'Amour fan, and he has a book out called Jubal Sackett. Really good book. If you haven't read it, get it. It's really good. Anything by Louis L'Amour is good. But in this book, he points out that American Indians have oral histories. They keep track of their history orally. They pass down through the generations. They have memories of their ancestors hunting woolly mammoths in North America. And it wasn't that long ago. Okay? So when you hear scientists say, well, that can't happen, you know, at that point, if a scientist says it can't possibly happen, you gotta take a step back and think about that. Now, there are some things obviously that can't happen. I'm not going to walk out the door and fly. I can't do that. I'm an old fat bald guy. I can't fly. I may have, you know, decent streamlined aerodynamics with a bald head, but other than that, it ain't happening. I'm too fat and heavy. It ain't happening. There are certain absolutes in science. However, when you have so many credible witnesses seeing things in the wilderness areas, woods, forests, things like that they can't explain, swamps, you know, out in the desert, because they're all over. You see stuff like that. You hear of stories like that from credible people. People have no reason to lie. They're not making any money off of it. Reporting stories like this could conceivably ruin their careers, their lives. You got to kind of take, you know, put some weight behind that. There's another man. He died recently, several years back, named Lloyd Pye. He had an interesting theory on that. We have so much of our wilderness that's unexplored, and we have so much that is unoccupied. There's plenty of places for a large biped to hide in North America. He also made a good point. All these hoaxers run around with fake feet making the footprints and stuff. A lot of these are articulated feet, which means the bones and the muscles inside, they've created a prosthetic that works exactly like a real foot. So if these people, instead of running around in the woods making hoaxes with these fake feet, take these fake feet to a company that makes prosthetics, they could be millionaires. They could make a lot of money doing that. So the other thing about Bigfoot, if it's a hoax, it is a long-running hoax. It's been around for about ancient Middle Eastern areas reported these things. We're talking 6,000 years ago. So if it's a hoax, it's a long-running hoax, and it's well preserved. Okay. When I was a kid, the very first horror movie I ever saw that really scared me, made me afraid to go outside, was the legend of Boggy Creek, and it dealt with a creature like this, three-toed, and apparently in recent times, these, according to normal stories, according to witnesses in New Mexico, they're now spotting these three-toed footprints. Okay. There's a video on YouTube, you can get it, called the Navajo Rangers, and it deals with the paranormal things that they see out in New Mexico, out in the middle of nowhere. That's a compelling video, because these guys are cops. Okay, just saying. All right, now let's get on to the second part of this video: UFOs. I work in a very remote area. I work overnights. I see lights in the sky all the time that I cannot explain. I have tried to get photos with my cell phone and things like that, other means, and these things don't show up on my video camera. They don't show up as on my photos. So I don't know what to make of that. I'm an Air Force veteran. I'm not. I like to think I'm kind of grounded. People who know me think I'm a little weird, but I know the difference between an airplane and a helicopter and something else, whatever the hell it is. There are things people see in the night sky, and in broad daylight too, by the way. There's a guy named Jaime Musan. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a Mexican journalist, and he was going to do a little fun thing, on Sunday nights. Turns out to be the biggest paranormal show as I understand it, in Mexican history. It went from a half an hour to like a 2.5 hour program on Sunday nights, and he keeps getting call-ins and people sending him all kinds of footage. This guy has some compelling stuff. Okay, really compelling stuff. Videos and photos of aliens on the ground, alien life forms walking around and stuff. Now, again, I don't know if any of that's true, but if it's very realistic looking, and if it's not true, whoever did it did a hell of a job. Kudos to them if it's fake, because that's a hell of a hoax. I'm going to point out one of the biggest UFO events in history. There was an event that happened over Phoenix, Arizona. I want to say it was 1997. They call it the Phoenix Lights. You can look up information on it. Thousands of witnesses, literally thousands of witnesses reported this. This was a V-shaped craft that moved at 30 miles an hour slowly across the sky over the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. Hundreds and hundreds of people got videos and photos, and these are credible witnesses. These are doctors, lawyers, police officers, military personnel. This isn't Billy Bubba in his backyard with a 6-pack of beer, cooking on a barbecue, half tanked, and looks up, oh look, what's that? Oh, let's get a video of it. No, these are credible people in jobs that reporting the story could have ruined their careers. I mean, it was ridiculous how many people saw this. Do some research and look into that. I'm not saying UFOs are real, I don't know. But that is, in my opinion, the most credible case, because you have so many witnesses, so many videos, so many photos. You have stories that the military put out that can't possibly be true about it. They call it flares or whatever. And these lights moved in unison across the night sky. They weren't, floating down like a parachute flare, or they didn't behave like flares. They behaved like a craft moving across. And people were underneath it, and they could see it pass over them, and you could see the outline of this thing as it passed over, because it blocked out the stars. I mean, it was one huge craft. Other lights left it and came back, is my understanding. Which means it's a type of an aircraft carrier. Now, you think back to that movie, The Avengers, where they had the big helicarrier, the shield helicarrier, and that's a cool looking thing. But let's look at that from a military standpoint. If that thing couldn't cloak, everybody could see it. It does. It's not jet powered, moving fast or anything. That's a big freaking target in a military situation. That thing is a target. Okay, it's got to have some significant defenses. Otherwise, a couple of missiles will bring it down easy. Cheap missiles too. It wouldn't even take a lot. Okay, you aim for those the 4 big engines. You're done. You see what I'm saying? My point is, this big craft that moved across Phoenix, Arizona, was a large singular aircraft, and other things left it and came back, like little smaller craft. So if it's an aircraft carrier and our government built it, why in God's name would you? It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. In our modern technology, it doesn't make any sense. Seeing something like that flying through the sky, that's a damn target. It's a waste of billions of dollars for nothing. So, that being said, if that was real, and if it was a craft, I doubt our government did it. If they did, that's a waste of money. That's a waste of freaking money. As a military craft, it's a waste of money. If they're doing stuff just to prove they can do it, something's wrong. Okay? There are other reports from all over the world. This isn't just an American phenomenon. These are all over the world. Like I said, I want to say his name is Jaime Maussan. He's a very well-respected Mexican journalist. He's and he's a funny little dude, man. He's awesome. He's a funny dude. You can check him out some of his work. His English isn't so great, but he's funny. I like it. At any rate, the UFO phenomenon has been going on for centuries as well. There are paintings in museums and stonework in churches around the world that depict craft in the sky. What's his name? The Macedonian dude, Alexander the Great. He reported being attacked by flying shields. This is a serious thing, and I'm not saying UFOs are real or aliens are real or whatever. I'm not taking a stand on that issue, but I will say this. Again, if it's a hoax, it's been around a long time and it's well documented. Okay. Now that being said, again, I'm not saying any of this stuff is real, but do some research from credible sources. Okay. Again, we don't want to see, teenagers videotaping something in the night sky. They're to me, that's not absolutely credible. But there was a movie from back in the 50s called UFO. The story of unidentified flying saucers or whatever. Anyway, just type in UFO on YouTube and you can see it. It's in black and white. They have some video, some film footage of UFOs that cannot be explained. Now, here's something to consider. Back in the 50s, they didn't have modern movie studios and computer graphics and CGI and all that stuff. They didn't have that. Look at one of those old 1950s monster movies, and you can see the level of special effects that they had. And then you look at these film footage that's in this movie UFO from the 1950s. You can see a stark difference. These things, whatever's on that film footage, if it's faked, they came from the future to fake it, because we didn't have that technology back then. There's no way to fake that. Nowadays, if a kid on a laptop can, with the proper software, he can make a video of a UFO flying through his hometown and stopping above the sheriff's department and hovering and then leaving or whatever. There's a lot you can do. But in the 1950s, they didn't have any of that. They didn't have computers. They didn't have home computers. They didn't have none of that. Movie studios were very primitive. Very primitive. Okay? I'm just saying. Watch that movie. It's really good. It's an old movie. It's black and white. It's kind of it's a movie, but it's also a documentary. There's a lot of good people in it. But my point is, watch that show and you'll see. So that's my. There was a wonderful movie out. I can't remember what it was called. I want to say it was Jodie Foster. She made a good point. Mathematically, as big as the universe is, and as big as many stars are out there, and as many planets as we know are out there, Mathematically, there's got to be alien life somewhere. The universe is too big for there not to be. Now, whether or not they're visiting us, I don't know. But there you go.
Cryptids, our cryptid cousins. I've been a Bigfoot enthusiast for decades, and I can't say for sure that Bigfoot exists one way or the other, but I've always loved the stories. Check out the cryptid videos on my channel. Also check out my movie review on the Boggy Creek monster, the legend of Boggy Creek. One of the big questions that plague Bigfoot enthusiasts and researchers is, why hasn't anyone shot and killed a Bigfoot? I mean, that would give us the proof right there, right? Case closed. Yes, that would give us irrefutable evidence that the creature's existence. Unfortunately, there are several issues with this rather bloodthirsty solution. First, nobody knows how many of these creatures exist today. If we start shooting them, it's possible that we could inadvertently drive them into extinction. They may be endangered and we not even know about it. We might not even know about it. Second, almost every hunter I have ever heard interviewed has said that the creature looked too human to kill. The vast majority of witnesses are not armed, but the majority of the few that are simply refuse to shoot one for fear that they might be prosecuted for murder. So most of the people who see them don't have a gun on them. Of the ones that do, the ones that are out hunting or the ones that are armed for whatever reason, they say it looks too human to shoot. And they're afraid of going to jail. And rightly so. I have heard of a number of incidents where humans fought with various cryptids. Check out my video, Cryptid Wars. So, it has happened. I have heard only 2 stories of a hunter seeing a Bigfoot creature or creatures and just shooting them and killing them outright. The story that I lend the most credibility to, and I cannot remember his name, but there was a guy who shot and killed a Bigfoot, a wild man, whatever, and he dumped the body into a freezer and filled it with water. The frozen corpse made the rounds at state fairs all across the nation, and I actually saw this exhibit when I was a young kid. We were at the New Mexico State Fair. Our dad took us to the fair, and I was going through the different exhibits, and I saw this creature frozen in ice. Now, I'm a hunter. I'm a veteran. I have seen bodies get shot, and that was not fake. Just saying, that was not fake. The story that I can believe but don't necessarily swear by is, and I heard this, I want to say it was on Coast to Coast AM, but this hunter claimed that he had shot and killed 2 Bigfoot creatures. When he got closer and examined them, he got scared that he might be prosecuted for murder because they looked very human. He panicked and he buried them. And to this day, he has not divulged the location of this makeshift gravesite. Now, that being said, I'm on the fence whether or not he should have shot him. I don't think he should have. But since he did shoot them, I'm all up for owning up to your responsibilities. He shot him. He should own up to it. But because he's afraid he might be prosecuted for murder, I can understand why he wouldn't want to divulge the location. No body, no foul. No blood, no foul. No body. What's it called? There's a word. There's a legal term. If they don't have a dead body, they can't prosecute him for murder. Essentially. Now that being said, I'm not in favor of shooting these things. I mean, if it's attacking you, by all means, blow it away. If you have the means to do so, defend yourself, whatever that means may be. But just to see one walking across the field and shoot it, no, that's not right. I was always taught that if you ain't going to eat it, or if it's not trying to kill you, you can't shoot it. So, self-defense is great. If you have to eat, that's okay. But I can't see anybody eating a humanoid walking across a field. So, in that respect, there's no reason to shoot it. If it's trying to kill you, that's fine, but that would be the only reason. Now, in the other video, Cryptid Wars, I talked about Lloyd Pye, about his theory about these things being evolutionary offshoots of humanity. These things are what Neanderthal man evolved into, and they hide from us. If Lloyd Pye's theory is correct, and these creatures are distant evolutionary cousins of ours, I can certainly understand why people would be reluctant to shoot one. Perhaps they are more human than we would like to admit. There are places where shooting one is a crime. There's places in California, and a few other places. I know there's at least one town in California, and there's other places throughout the country. Hefty fines and jail sentences reward those who do shoot these things. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we should discourage shooting these things, because maybe me using the term "these things" is wrong. Maybe they're people. We don't know. Reincarnation, because I threatened to do it, and so here it is. For those of you who don't know, many cultures and religions around the world incorporate some form of reincarnation in their theology. Hindus, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Judaism, American Indians, Native Australians, certain subgroups of Christians and Islamists all believe in one form or another of reincarnation. The basic concept is that when one person dies, they come back in another form. It's the same person, same soul, same makeup, just in a new form. So one person dies, another person's born, and they're reincarnated into that new person. This has been very, very, very well reported. The first time I ever heard about it, seriously, there was a television program a long time ago, and I don't remember what it was. It might have been Unsolved Mysteries or something like that. And there was a little kid in India, and he was having a conversation with an adult, an old man. And he was asking him, "Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time." And the old man's like, "Have we met?" And the kid's like, "Yeah, you and I, we worked together, we fought together in a war, and we did this and we did that. How's your mom doing? Is she still alive? Blah, blah, blah." You know, that kind of thing. This kid knew secrets and stories about this guy that nobody else could know. He knew things that happened that only he had shared with his friend. His friend had died. Well, now this kid is claiming to be his friend reincarnated, you see. And I found that to be rather interesting. And so, and this is not by no means the only case. This happens a lot all around the world. It is said that birthmarks are scars from a past death. So if you're born and you have a birthmark, apparently that's a scar from a previous death. A lot of people that are born with these birthmarks, I don't know if they actually believe it or what, but in certain instances, these birthmarks cause them pain. I have a friend who, as many birthmarks as he got, when he was alive, somebody blowed him up real good. He's got them all over. Holy crap, you know. At any rate, there's a lot of indicators of this. If you have memories you can't explain, if you have dreams about, very, very vivid dreams from past lives that you can't explain, like you're there, you know. A lot of people, I did this thing on deja vu, and one of the causes was reincarnation. Well, this is one of the indicators of past lives, is deja vu. In most, this is my understanding, in most reincarnation cases, the subject is reborn in the same area, usually within 50 kilometers, as the previous death. So if say you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you die, and you're going to be reincarnated, it's usually within 50 miles of that. That's my understanding of it. At least this is what the articles that I've read say. And there are thousands of cases around the world. Like I said, little kids who know so much about people they just met. There's no other explanation for it. There's no way they could know this stuff. And in very startling accuracy, really, really accurate. So reincarnation is a serious phenomenon. It does happen. There's people around the world who claim it. There's tons of evidence to support the theory. So do some research on your own. It's an interesting topic. If you think you may have been reincarnated, there's a way to find out. They have this study called past life regression. It deals with hypnosis. The idea is they put you under, and they can allegedly access memories from these past lives. So they can put you under, and while you're under hypnosis, that you can remember what happened, how you died, these past lives. And there are many people who go under and have past lives that go back thousands of years, one after the other, boom, 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 generational. It goes back generations.
It's called deja vu, and that's a French word, and a French phrase, excuse me, and it means already seen. So, what deja vu is if you're going about your daily routine and you feel you've seen this before, or this has happened before, or you've done this before, that you're experiencing deja vu. It's a feeling of having experienced a specific set of circumstances before. That's the official definition. I used to have deja vu almost all the time, almost daily. But mine was a little different. I would see, now this is me. I would see something happening, and I would say, wait a minute, I dreamed this. I remember this. I remember it from a dream that I had the other day or whatever. And these dreams, I hesitate to call them prophetic because you don't remember until they happen. If you're prophetic, it means you're dreaming about something in the future, and technically I was, but it doesn't do you a hell of a lot of good unless you can remember it before it happens. So these dreams I had, while being, I guess, technically prophetic, they weren't useful. So while I was experiencing a lot of deja vu, it wasn't, and I haven't done it in a while. I don't know, maybe it was my youthful brain as opposed to, my adult, what do you call it, mature brain, I guess. Old man brain, the grumpy old fart brain, yeah, that's it. Anyway, the causes of this, they've got a number of different ones listed. So I'm going to go down the list. This is what I researched and found out. Deja vu can be caused by mental illness, likely schizophrenia. Okay? So while you have a mental illness, this could be happening to you. Let me see if I can get this right. Hang on, I don't want to mess it up. Dissociative identity disorder. And frankly, I don't even know what that is. It may have something to do with multiple personality. I don't know. But that's what they're saying might be a cause of deja vu. Brain tumors might be a cause. Psychic abilities. That one's interesting. I like the paranormal. My wife and my family, we all love the paranormal stuff. Check out my paranormal experiences video. You'll like that. It's funny. I close with a funny one. Glimpsing a parallel reality. They're now saying that there could be an infinite number of parallel worlds, parallel realities. And if somebody has the ability to glimpse into the different ones, that could be confusing, especially if you don't know you have that ability. I mean, theoretically, of course. Dual processing. Now, I had to look this up. A lapse in the order of our cognitive recognition, meaning we don't recognize, we see events, but then we see them out of order, essentially. That's what that boils down to. Memories from other sources. From long ago, for example. We saw something and we forgot about it, and then we see it again, and and I guess that could explain being in certain places, if you saw pictures of it or whatever. But as far as events that are happening, that with specific people, I don't know. That doesn't seem likely. But it's listed here, so I listed it. Familiarity-based recognition, which means you're mixing up memories. That's another way of looking at that. Holographic memory, memories pressed over sensory information. I have no idea what that means, but they listed it. I tried to look it up. I couldn't find nothing on it. So apparently this is a holographic memory. I don't understand that. Precognitive dreams, which may be what I did. If you're having a dream and dream about the future. Of course, to me, that seems a lot like psychic abilities. Who knows? Temporary brain malfunction called amygdala, amygdala. Amygdala. Anyway, temporary brain malfunctions, essentially, is what they're talking about. Reincarnation. Now that one, I may do a video on that one in the future. That one seems interesting to me because I like the paranormal and stuff. And there's too much evidence to support the theory of reincarnation to completely dismiss it. I don't know if it's true or not, but you know, it's something to look at. A glitch in reality. If reality has glitches and we were there for the first part of it and we're there for the second part, we might realize that something weird happened. And that could explain deja vu. So that makes sense to me. But regardless of these different things, nobody knows what causes it. But it does happen. It happens just about every human being on the planet at one point or other. Happens all over the world. And it's part of life. You can't get away. You can't get away from it.
All cryptids. For those of you who don't know, a cryptid is a mysterious animal, an unexplained. There's a family of zoologists called cryptozoologists, and they hunt for new or undocumented species, I guess would be the best way to put it. And cryptids include all manner of unexplained critters, including Bigfoot. Now, before we get too in depth into the different sightings, I want to explain something. People are seeing these things, and they nobody can explain them. And if it was just one or two people seeing them, you know, it wouldn't be that big a deal. Or if it was some bozo drunk or whatever, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But thousands of people are seeing these things every year, and these people are credible. They're credible people. They're not making it up. Most of them aren't making any money off of it. It's not like they're... It's not like they're... if it's a hoax, it's well organized and well planned and well executed, you know. And these people are not making, like I said, these people are making money, and I'm not saying any of these things are real. I'm not jumping on that boat. However, I'm standing at the docks and I'm saying there's something to that. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Because there's so many of these things being seen, so many of them, credible observers. They can't all be crazy. I mean, there's something to this. All right. Everybody knows about Bigfoot. Huge hominid. They're big, hairy hominids. Some of them are little, hairy hominids. But these things are seen on every continent around the world. Some little islands out in the Pacific. They're seen in England. They're seen in Europe, Russia. They're literally all over the world. Okay. If this is a hoax, it's a hell of a hoax, and it's been around for at least 6,000 years. There was a really great researcher named Lloyd Pye who did a lot of good research on that, and there's been many others. A lot of really big-name zoologists are involved in this, and like I said, they call it cryptozoology. But Bigfoot isn't the only one. All around the world, they're seeing lake monsters of various kinds. Loch Ness Monster is one of them. It looks like a long eel-looking thing. Lake Champlain here in America. And again, there's lake monsters all over the world. It's not just isolated incidents. They're literally everywhere. There's something called a let me get this right. Chupacabra. It's in the Americas and in Puerto Rico. It means goat sucker. This thing apparently sucks the blood out of goats. It's kind of a little vampiric looking, I don't know what you want to call it. All around the world, including usually in swamps, they're reporting reptoids or lizard men. there's a very famous researcher named David Icke who, this is going to sound weird, he has a lot of fantastic claims, and a lot of his claims are really out there. I'm not, let's not mince words about that. He comes across as kind of crazy. But some of the stuff that he talks about when you're talking about government conspiracies and things like that, some of it kind of holds water. So he's not completely discounted, and he has a huge following. So, I'm not disparaging the man, but he has this idea that some sort of reptilian aliens are running the world. And I don't know, I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. I'm just saying that's what he thinks, and it kind of goes in with this lizard man reptoid cryptid sightings. They're seen in swamps all over the world. So, excuse me. I do not have the coronavirus. It's a smoker's cough. Okay. I like cigars. Okay. Winged creatures all over the world, especially the Jersey Devil, the Mothman, and out in the Midwest they have the Thunderbird, and big bird-looking creatures. They're seen in the Old West. They've been seen for hundreds of years. It's not a lot of people give descriptions of what resembles something like a pterosaur, some sort of a dinosaur, big reptilian bird. So, I don't know. Again, I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just telling you what they're saying. And if, like I said, if one or two people had seen these, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But thousands of sightings all throughout the year, every year, at some point you got to say, well, maybe there's something to it, In South America, China, Cambodia, Australia, and Africa, they are seeing dinosaurs, raptors, and pterodactyls. There are people who claim that all dinosaurs are extinct. Well, the crocodiles have not changed in millions of years. They're essentially small dinosaurs. They thought the coelacanth was extinct for 65 million years, and then it turns out they're catching them off the coast of Africa fairly regularly. These people that are seeing them in South America, China, Cambodia, Australia, Africa, these are credible people, and they're not all, superstitious tribesmen. We're talking credible, college-educated people are seeing these things. So, if it's a hoax, it's a hell of a hoax. All around the world, people are seeing large canines, big felines, cats and dogs, huge cats and dogs. All across America, and I might be overseas as well. They're seeing what they call, it's kind of like a wolf man kind of thing. I forget what they call it. They have a word for it. But it's like a big wolf walking around, like a werewolf, for lack of a better word. People are seeing these things, and the Bray, I want to say it's called the Bray Road Monster or something like that. And they're all over. So people are seeing these things, and it's not, again, I'm not saying these things are real. What I'm saying is people are reporting them at rates that we cannot ignore. And these people are not all crazy. They can't all be crazy. They can't all be on drugs, and they can't all be drunk. If one of them is a hoax, if they're all hoaxes except for one, and that one is real, we've got something. In Africa, and all across the South Pacific, in Vietnam, and right here in the United States, people are reporting enormous spiders, big spiders. Some of them big spiders. Okay. Again, I don't know if that's, again, I'm not saying any of this is real, but people are reporting them, and I figured I'd include them in this because people say, well, I don't believe in Bigfoot. Well, you don't have to. Nobody's saying you have to. But if a Bigfoot should walk by your window and look in at you, what are you going to say then? I'm saying we don't know. All across the world, people are reporting sea serpents, like the Loch Ness Monster, but out in the ocean. Big sea serpents. Like, there was a report in or around World War One of a large reptilian serpent-like creature that came up out of the water and sunk a boat, and it was witnessed by a Nazi, or not a Nazi, but a World War One U-boat and a submarine, and the captain actually put it in his log. So, you know, are these things real? I don't know. But discounting anything is the first step in ignorance. People said that mankind started 5,000 years ago or whatever, and now we found Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that religious site I talked about in the other videos. We found that religious site in Turkey that's 11,500 years. It pushes back the dawn of man something like 11,000 years earlier on this planet, and scientists don't know. That's the whole point of the field of cryptology. We don't know. Dimensional travelers. Now, I use that term, dimensional travelers, because we're not sure exactly where these people came from, or in a lot of cases where they went. I did a video on the green children, the mysterious green children from back in, I want to say it was 16th, 17th century England. 2 green kids, one of them died, one of them stayed, and they said they were from some land that nobody ever heard of, and they just walked into the village one day. Well, it's kind of like that, except this happens in modern day. Throughout history, people have appeared at airports, naval ports, docks, border crossings, with copious documentation and credible stories detailing and regarding exactly where they're coming from. And it's all on the up and up. The problem is their home countries don't exist. It happens more often than people would like to admit. And these people come from countries such as Lisbon and Luxaria. It happens a lot more often than people would like to admit. The most famous of these travelers appeared in Tokyo in July of 1954. He was Caucasian and conventional looking. His passport looked normal, but he hailed from a place called Taured, Taured, Taured. On a map, he ID'd the Principality of Andorra, but had never heard of it. He became angry and confused, and according to him, Taured had been there for 1,000 years. Nobody knew what it was. He had money from several European countries, and his passports had been stamped from all around the globe, and it was all on the up and up. It's just from a country nobody had ever heard of. The company he worked for had never heard of him, but he had lots and lots of documentation to prove he worked for this company. They'd never heard of him. Of course, the authorities were baffled. They took him to a hotel, and they put him there under guard. And, of course, he promptly disappeared. Police said he could not have left through the window, and there was no balcony. So he didn't come out to the door, he didn't go out through the window. He just disappeared out of the hotel room, and there was a guard. He was never seen again. This is just one example of many. This is the one people hear about the most. This guy was insistent that he was from Taured, and nobody had ever heard of it before. It's my personal opinion, and I have no scientific, basis to back this up other than stuff that's coming out now in science dealing with multiple dimensions. We have a science now called quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and they're trying to mathematically prove the existence of multiple dimensions. Some of these dimensions overlap. There's lots of theories as to how people accidentally traverse back and forth between these dimensions. And people, when you talk about stuff like this, people kind of look at you funny. That's kind of weird. Well, you know what? Maybe, but how many people go missing every year and are never seen again? How many people go missing and then are returned later with weird stories? Happens all the time. Maybe this guy showed up in Tokyo in this other dimension, and he had a weird story where, I was in Tokyo yesterday, nobody ever heard of it. What's going on? Well, we'd never seen you before. Well, that kind of thing. So you don't know. Because, as a matter of fact, I did a video called Reverse Dimension, I think it was. Something like that. Where scientists have proven, or at least they believe they've proven, the existence of an alternate dimension where time flows backwards. So, you never know what's possible. You just never know. If these people are traveling between dimensions, what else can you say? The Mandela effect. And for those of you who don't know anything about that, who are unfamiliar with that, let me explain. There is a phenomena where large percentages of the population misremember certain historical events, like movie lines, actual historical events, cartoon names, things like that. Specific details, they miss them. And it's not where one or two people are doing it. We're talking huge swaths of the population. It is a worldwide thing. We're talking 7.5 billion people, and say 40% of them misremember an event. It's ridiculous how many people, are not remembering what happened. And like I said, this effect is worldwide. It's called the Mandela effect because it was discovered that many Americans remember news reports of Nelson Mandela having died in prison in the 1980s. Okay, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Nelson Mandela, he was a South African political figure, resistance figure. Depending on who you talk to, some people said he was a terrorist. I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other there. My point is, he was they threw him in prison, and I don't know. I can't say I remember the news reports, but I seem to remember something about Nelson Mandela having died in prison in the 1980s. The problem is, he was freed from prison after apartheid was done, and I want to say he was elected to power in South Africa, and he just died recently of natural causes. So, you see what I'm saying? To say serious, I guess is a relative term. I guess it's serious for him because he didn't die in prison, which is yay for him. My point is, there's a lot of events in history that people misremember, and it's not that they misremember different details, different ways. Huge portions of the population misremember specific events in a specific way. I got some examples here. There's a popular children's cartoon called the Berenstain Bears. It's spelled Berenstain, S-T-A-I-N, and not S-T-E-I-N. Many people remember it spelled S-T-E-I-N. You see, they're not misremembering different spellings. It's all the same misremembering. Okay. Many people believe that Billy Graham died. Well, apparently he's still alive. Many people believe that the Queen song, We Are the Champions lyrics, the last line is, no time for losers because we are the champions. A lot of people think the last line is, of the world. And apparently that's not on there. I thought it was. Go figure. There's a cartoon called Curious George, and it's about a monkey. And many people remember him swinging from tree limbs from his tail. The problem is the monkey in Curious George never had a tail. I thought he did too. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of this stuff. Okay, one of my favorites, I saved this one for last as an example, and there's many other examples. Darth Vader's phrase in The Empire Strikes Back when he's talking to Luke and he's explaining, that he is Luke's father. The actual line is, "No, I am your father." Okay. Many, many, many people remember him saying, "Luke, I am your father." Okay? Minor little details like that. But it's amazing. It's just amazing. And nobody changed the film because this Mandela effect has been going on long before they redid those movies. Because they did redo the movies. But the line didn't change. It's still the same. Okay? So when you hear about stuff like this Mandela effect, you're thinking, well, that's just weird. Yeah, that's more than that. It's huge. Like 40% of the world's population has some of these misrememberings. And there's lots and lots of others, thousands of examples of this. A lot of people have discussed a lot of different possibilities for this. Parallel universes, and I touch on some of this with Parallel Universe Traveler, I think it was called, or something along those lines, where the guy landed in, I want to say it was Japan, and he had paperwork from a country that didn't exist, so they put him in a hotel room, and then he ended up disappearing from a guarded hotel room. Alternate dimensions, things like that. If there are such things as alternate dimensions, then theoretically some of the information from some of these other dimensions has been bleeding over. It is also possible, according to quantum physics, that people may sometimes transpose with their counterparts in these other dimensions. Because if there's another dimension that's exactly like ours, it stands to reason it's got to be populated by somebody. If we each have a duplicate in that other dimension and we once in a while switch places with them, yeah, we're going to misremember some stuff because the universes aren't exactly identical. You see what I'm saying? That's one theory. Another theory is a Matrix-style glitch. If you remember the movie The Matrix, where the entire world's population was stuck in those little canister things, they're being used as batteries or whatever the freaking thing was. But the world we lived in was a computer-generated hologram, for lack of a better word, like one of those holodecks off of Star Trek. Okay, and when there's a glitch, like deja vu or whatever, when there's a glitch, we misremember things. Oh, that's not the way that happened. That kind of thing. That's one possible theory, is that the entire universe is one of these computer-generated hologram things, and there's glitches because the programming isn't perfect. I don't know. The other theory that I heard that I liked, because this one to me is a little more sound, and I don't want to sound like I'm being a nutball or whatever, but Einstein did prove that time travel is possible. It is possible people from the future are going back in time. When in the future they will theoretically have developed time travel. We are working on it now. I did a video on it. I also did a video about the layman's guide to temporal theory or whatever. Go check out my videos on that. The first one I think is a technophobe video on time travel. But the point is, theoretically somebody in the future will have developed time travel. If somebody's going back in time and changing events without meaning to, of course, little things, because you don't want to create temporal paradox. But if they are, of course, assumingly it's accidental, it'll be little details that have changed. And of course, we remember things wrong because we remember the way it was originally. These people have gone back and changed things, but then you look at the video, or like for example the Star Trek one, the Star Wars one rather. You look at it and you're thinking, well, that's not what he said. Well, yeah, we just heard it, but that's not what he said. That kind of thing. Berenstain Bears spelled differently. It could be temporal paradoxes. People go back and change stuff, and what do I know? I have no idea. But I know this Mandela effect is a worldwide phenomenon. I know it is being looked at by serious quantum physicists as a way of as a problem. Not a problem as in, oh my God, it's a problem, but as I wonder if we can figure that out. That kind of thing. So when people, if somebody doesn't remember things exactly the way you do, it may not be a lie and it may not be a personal skew. You never know. It may be the Mandela effect. Black-eyed children. And a lot of people have not heard of these, and I know I hadn't until a little while back. I had a friend of mine give me a call. I lived in North Carolina for about 6 years, and he called me on the phone, and we were talking, and he happened to mention that he had a couple of kids approach his car, and the one he saw up close had black eyes, and he didn't like it, so he left. He became frightened and left. And this, you got to see, you understand this guy. He's a former law enforcement. He's a military veteran. He's a war veteran. He doesn't scare easily. I know this guy. This guy can handle himself. He doesn't scare easily, and he's usually armed. This kid with the black eyes frightened him, so he drove away quickly. I kind of hesitated doing that, mentioning him in this. I'm not going to say his name because a lot of people find that disturbing. Some people might find it embarrassing. I don't think he would, but out of respect, I'm not going to say who he is. But my point is, he knows who he is. That being said, I figure I'd do this video to kind of explain more about what these things are. Now, keep in mind, there's not a lot we do know about these, so I'm conglomerating different sources here, so bear with me. Originally, it was thought that the stories of the black-eyed children started back in 1996 in Texas, but it seems that these stories go back to the 1980s or possibly earlier. So this is a relatively new phenomenon. These kids appear to be pale-skinned children between the ages of 6 and 16. They have inky black eyes or in ragged eye holes, which I believe is how my friend described them, was the ragged eye holes. If you're looking at somebody and you can see where it's all raggedy and inside it's just inky black, yeah, it's time to go. I would probably drive away too. If you're my friend, if you're listening to this, you did good. You survived. And I'm not saying these things will kill you. I don't know what they'll do. There's very few reports as to what happens when people actually try to help these kids. I couldn't find any reports as to what happens when you have dealings with them. Let me go on and you'll understand. Usually they're encountered on roads or highways or on residential doorsteps, so they come to people's houses. They usually travel in pairs. One will stand back and the other one will come up and ask for a handout or some assistance, or they'll ask to come inside, get in the car, for a ride or whatever, or they'll ask to come into your home. And most people, when they see their eyes, they reject it. Oh no, hell no, go away, kind of thing, And the children usually leave without a fuss, so that's good. But we don't know. We don't know what would happen if you did invite these things in. That's the thing. I couldn't find any reports, and I looked. Okay, these kids possibly have psychic or telepathic powers, being able to read your surface thoughts, being able to read your emotions, that kind of thing. That's been reported. Sometimes they track people from town to town after these people have moved. So people get multiple visits, and after they move, the kids still show up at the new house. They move to a different city, and the kids show up. It's freaky. These black-eyed children tend to inspire fear, panic, and dread, so much so that animals even hide from them. Guard dogs, trained attack dogs, have hidden from these things. So animals have a greater sensory perception than we do. I'm thinking if a trained attack dog is hiding from these things, it's time, we don't want to do them. That's all I'm saying. A lot of people have put forth comments and ideas of what they could be, theories. Possible explanations include, you're going to love this, vampires, demons. That one, to me, seems a little more likely, but that's just me. Another possible explanation, the old standby, aliens. There one particular individual, and I don't want to say his name because I don't want to. If I'm misunderstanding his thought, I don't want to say his name because that would wrongfully implicate him in something kind of weird, and I don't want to, you know. But the idea that this person put forth, as I understand it, was that some sort of these things are some sort of government operatives, like the Men in Black or whatever, and I can't see that. A government operative comes up and he's got authority, he'll show you his badge. These things have had no report I saw anywhere had them putting up a badge or wearing any kind of a uniform. They look like normal kids wearing clothes with eyes. I don't know. So the only thing I can think of there to tell you is if any of these kids, a pair of kids approach, check the eyes before you invite them in, and be careful, because like I said, we don't know what happens if you do invite them in. We don't know what happens if you interact with them. We don't know what happens if you give them a handout. We just don't know. And it's better to be safe than sorry. When in doubt, go away. Just run. Run like hell. Fear. Forget everything and run. If you're a military man, you know that first word is usually something different. I'm just saying. My point is, get the hell out of Dodge, because these things may very well mean you harm. We don't know. They may be peaceful. Hell, I don't know. They won't invite them in and have popcorn. I don't know. I'm not inviting them in. If one shows up at my doorstep, you just get the hell out of here and go. But shadow people, and I mentioned this in another video on faceless humans. Go check that one out. But this one here, it's been widely documented. This particular phenomena is widely documented. These shadow people apparently have been around for centuries, if not thousands of years. Shadow people are dark figures associated with nighttime visitations and some haunted places. And these reports go back hundreds of years, like I said. Shadow people are generally seen at night, most often in bedrooms by people in bed. That's generally where you see them. A person will either be on the verge of falling asleep, or they're just waking up and will see this dark, shadowy figure staring at them. They're often associated with sleep paralysis, because they'll see these things and not be able to move, not be able to scream, that kind of thing. And that's very similar to the faceless humanoid video that I did. So, that's why I'm saying they might be associated with them or related to them or something. I don't know. Many people have captured these figures in the background of photographs. So they're going to take a photo of loved ones or whatever, the family picture or whatever, and in the back corner there's a dark figure standing there. And that's fairly common as well. Many people associate these figures with haunted places, haunted houses, woods, buildings, that kind of thing. And I tend to think that there might be a difference there. It's one thing to say you have a shadow or a shade or an entity haunting a building. It's another thing where these things only show up at night and attack people in bed. So, and there have been attacks reported. Okay. So I don't know if they're the same thing. Maybe these things have different agendas. I don't know. But to me, there's a purpose, and I tend to think that they're not. They have different agendas. That's all I can say there. Many people reporting being attacked by these shadowy figures. Some, they'll wake up and this thing's on their chest and they can't move and they can't breathe and they can't scream. Very, very terrifying. These things are sometimes associated with violent emotions. So if you're suffering from things like night terrors or weird dreams where you can't move and can't scream, it might be worth checking out. It may be nothing. It may be something up here and not out here. And I'm not saying people are crazy. I'm saying you're dreaming of something subconsciously and it won't let you speak or scream or move, as opposed to a demonic entity sitting on your chest. That kind of thing. There's been a lot of people trying to explain what these shadow people are. The old standby, aliens, it's aliens, you know. Other people think they're ghosts, and that's probably a lot of them. I didn't used to be a big believer in ghosts. I'm generally a skeptic, but I've seen things that I can't explain. So, you know, I've done some videos on that. My paranormal experiences, go check that out. A lot of people think there might be demons and entities, and I think some of that might have something to do with that too, because as a Christian, you cannot overlook demons or demonic entities. You cannot believe in God without believing in the devil. I'm not saying you have faith in the devil or you worship him, but you know he's real. That's what I mean by having, by believing. You cannot believe in God without believing in the devil. It's like flip sides of the same coin. My point is, if there's a devil, then chances are there's demons, and if there's demons have an agenda. Other people think they might just be evil spirits, and I don't know much about that phenomenon. But I've heard many people who are into shamanic arts, natural medicines, herbalism, things like that. I've heard people talk about evil spirits, and it's in many cultures around the world, well-respected cultures. I'm not saying they're kooks or nothing. I'm not calling nobody a kook. Trust me, I've seen things I can't explain. That means there's stuff out there I don't know about. That's all I'm saying. Other people say that it deals with, like I said, shamanic activity and other magical stuff. For those of you who think magic is nuts, if you're a Christian, magic is in the Bible. Look up when Moses and his brother Aaron were in the Pharaoh's place there, and they were trying to convince the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. The Pharaoh's wizards threw their rods down, and they became snakes. Aaron threw his rod down, and through the power of God, his rod became a snake, which ate up the Pharaoh's snakes. Well, those Pharaoh's snakes, that wasn't a hallucination. They actually turned into snakes. Wooden staves can't do that. That's magic. Nobody can deny that. Now, whether you believe in God or not, or if you're a Christian, that's one thing. But if you believe in God, and if you believe in the Bible, if you believe what the Bible says is true, then magic does exist. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if anybody's practicing it now. I don't know. I'm just saying. That being said, we don't know what these shadow people are. And magic is about as good a explanation as anything else. But regardless of the source, one thing we do know is very few people report encounters with these shadow people as positive. Most of them are negative encounters. They are horrifyingly terrifying encounters. They're just bad. They're overall bad. And if you're seeing these shadow people, find some way to get away. Leave the house. Just go. If you're renting, go. Find someplace else to go. If they follow you, find somebody who can help you. Find professionals who can help you. Because if these things are physically attacking people, like the reports are saying, and if they are real, then if they're attacking people, they can do some serious damage. And especially if you're asleep, you're an easy target. All I'm saying is, if you're encountering these things, seek help.